Welcome back to the Akbar Academy podcast. Today we're talking about something that shapes literally everything around us forces. From birds flying to skyscrapers standing tall, it's all happening because of invisible interactions we usually don't even notice.
That's what's so wild about it. We can't actually see forces, only their effects. And for centuries, that made them incredibly mysterious. Even today, fully understanding them takes some pretty deep physics.
Let's bring this down to earth. Think about pushing a shopping cart. You're dealing with multiple forces at once: the push from your hands, friction in the wheels, gravity pulling down, and the normal force from the floor pushing up.
Such a simple task, but it's a great example of how many forces are constantly at play, even in the everyday.
And speaking of everyday forces, I think the most amazing part is how Newton's laws explain everything, from rocket launches to why seatbelts are so important.
Here's a fun fact. When you're cruising at a constant speed on the highway, all the forces on your car are actually balanced. The engine's thrust forward equals the friction and air resistance pushing back.
That balance is key. And here's something crazy. Formula One cars create so much downforce from their design that they could theoretically drive upside down on a ceiling at top speed.
Now that is incredible. And it all comes down to understanding the four key ways a force can change something: its speed, its direction, its shape, or its size.
Right? People think forces only push or pull, but that twisting motion when you open a jar, that's a force too.
Yep. In physics, we call those moments. And there's a cool rule called the principle of moments. It explains why it's easier to open a door near the handle than near the hinges. Longer distance equals to greater turning effect.
So how does this relate to something like satellites? That's got to involve some pretty complex force calculations, right?
Definitely. Satellites are actually constantly falling around Earth. They stay in orbit because of centripetal force, which in this case is provided by gravity. Same reason water stays in a bucket when you swing it in a circle.
The International Space Station is literally falling around Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. It's just missing the ground over and over.
That idea still blows my mind. And the coolest part? The same concept applies to planets around stars and even electrons around nuclei. Circular motion is everywhere.
Okay, switching gears. What about spring forces? That's a whole different kind of interaction.
Welcome to Hooke's Law. It says the extension of a spring is directly proportional to the force applied, but only up to a certain point. Past the limit of proportionality, and the spring won't return to its original shape.
So that's why my old mattress eventually lost its bounce. It stretched too far for too long.
Springs are everywhere. Car suspensions, running shoes, your computer keyboard keys, that little click feeling. That's a spring at work.
And all that ties into how we design and build things, which brings us to one of my favourite topics: center of gravity.
Oh yeah. Every structure, from the Leaning Tower of Pisa to the tallest skyscraper in Dubai, stays standing because its center of gravity stays within its base. Tip it too far, gravity takes over, and down it goes.
That's why tall buildings in earthquake zones often have giant counterweights, keeping the balance just right.
Speaking of balance, let's not forget about friction. It gets a bad reputation, but without it, we couldn't even walk.
We push backward, friction pushes us forward. Without it, we'd just slide around like cartoon characters on ice.
And speaking of ice, here's something wild. Ice skating works because the pressure from your skate blade melts the ice under it for a second, creating a thin layer of water that drastically reduces friction and lets you glide.
That's such a great real-world example of how understanding forces explains the things we often take for granted.
And once you start noticing it, you see it everywhere. Why we wear helmets, why airbags work, how roller coasters stay on track, or even why it's hard to open a stuck window.
And that's the beauty of physics. It gives you a new way to see the world. From massive satellites to the tiniest springs, everything obeys these same force rules.
Whoa. We hope this episode helps you see the invisible world of forces a little more clearly.
Because once you understand how forces work, you start to appreciate the balance, motion, and structure in everything.
Thanks for joining us today on the Akbar Academy podcast, where science brings the unseen into focus.